Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
All had the same goal, and that was to make the program work better for the people it served and better for the taxpayers that supported it.
Medicaid expansion in Louisiana, 2 years in.
Things are very expensive today. We spend a lot of money.
A drop in soybean prices is bad news for farmers.
To have a film to finally get in and to participate is a huge honor.
A Louisiana filmmaker and the PBS Online Film Fest.
Hi everyone, I'm Andre Morrow. Much more on those stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But right now, some big news for people hit by the 2016 floods. The Restore Louisiana Task Force has unanimously passed a resolution from Governor John Bel Edwards for a 100% reimbursement for repairs. That's up from 50%. And now we'll look at some of the other stories making headlines around the state.
The state wants the courts to rule out any Louisiana executions for at least one more year. A 2014 lawsuit challenging the state's lethal injection protocols has blocked executions, with the last one happening in 2010. A U.S. district judge has not ruled on this request. The real-life black bears that inspired toy teddy bears more than a century ago with President Teddy Roosevelt should get renewed federal protection. A June lawsuit against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says the service acted on flawed assumptions and shoddy science when it took Louisiana black bears off the threatened list 2 years ago. The state's black bears are the largest and rarest of 16 black bears subspecies. A Fish and Wildlife spokesman would not comment on the lawsuit's specific allegations. The latest LEAP scores from the state's education department show 34% of Louisiana's students continue to show a mastery of English, math, and social studies. The average score for the students in 3rd through 8th grade is 5 points higher than it was in 2015. Louisiana's officials lauded students for the reasonable improvement. A $2.5 million expansion will mean more work and more jobs at Cortec in Port Allen. The Houma-based company manufactures and services specialty equipment for the global oil and gas industry. Cortec currently employs about 150 people throughout the state.
No matter where you stand on the issue of Medicaid expansion, there are some facts you can't ignore. Before the expansion, 1 out of every 4 Louisiana adults did not have health care coverage. Today, 2 years into the expansion, state health officials say the uninsured rate is about 1 in 10. I talked with Don Gregory, health care advisor for PAR, the Public Affairs Research Council.
The expansion is going well from PAR's perspective. They got off to a really good start. It seems to have finally gotten past the initial phase-in and stabilized. Enrollment has stabilized this summer. It looks at about 470,000 people.
Don Gregory's career in healthcare spans almost 4 decades. He's now in an advisory role at PAR, whose mission is to be the state's independent voice through objective research that offers solutions to crucial issues to make our state better. He's the former state Medicaid director. It was under his guidance that Louisiana moved into managed care for the first time. He says Medicaid expansion has improved lives, saved lives, and helped the many who need it, but has room to improve.
What would you say pluses and minuses are of the system that we have in place now?
It's comparing a safety net system, which our old charity hospital system was, to an insurance system. So if you're in a safety net system, you're dependent on care that's not centered around preventative care. You go to the hospital or clinic and you have an acute issue that needs to be treated, and so you miss the opportunity to prevent some diseases. So the advantage of an insurance model like the expansion is that you have an opportunity to catch diseases early, treat them early where they're less costly. There's a place for genuine concerns, and something that large and that complex is always vulnerable, if you will, to expenditure issues. But it always kind of reminds me when I hear those arguments of something that Abraham Lincoln said once, that if you look for the bad in people, you certainly will find it. And if you look for the bad in the healthcare systems that are that big and that complex to operate, you certainly will find it. But I think there's a lot more good there than bad. In my experience working with auditors and others when I was at Medicaid was that we were all had the same goal, and that was to make the program work better for the people it served and better for the taxpayers that supported it.
Brenda Harris of Houma is one resident who finds that Medicaid expansion for her has been a life changer. Before, she faced multiple medical dilemmas.
In my back, I have bulges. This is in the lower part of the back, and in my right knee, I had a torn ligaments, and they had to do a scope, but unfortunately, they needed to go back in it. And right now, at that time, I couldn't get it done. Now I'll be able to get it done.
She has needs, and they are now met with Medicaid expansion. Paying for prescription meds, for example.
The medication I take for my back runs me like $75 to $100 and something a month. Some months I just don't worry about it because I can't afford it. So now I don't have that to worry, so it means a lot. Before I had to drive 30, 40 minutes to Houma, all the way in Houma to the Shabier. Now I can go 10 minutes from my house to Thibodeau General. It's much better. I won't have to suffer.
Since Medicaid expansion, is it costing us more than it was before?
The federal government is paying most of those costs today. The state's portion of those costs are being met from some dedicated revenue streams. And so they're spending more on Medicaid than they did before the expansion, for sure. But they're saving money in other areas. And overall, to date, the savings has been more than the cost. And so, at least so far, it's saved us money.
A problem in emergency rooms is that you have people with mental health issues going in, and that's a difficult thing to begin with, dealing with that.
There are about 5 different levels of care that you can be treated for and billed for in an emergency room. The 3 high levels absolutely should be there. And I would never discourage anyone who thinks they need to go to an emergency room for care from going, because they're usually they can be in a life-threatening situation. But the 2 lower levels of care could be served at a less costly setting, such as an urgent care center. And the issue is, how do you educate people about which is the most appropriate place for them to go and seek care? Part of the cost driver in the emergency room is not necessarily so much those people that are in the lower levels of care that could go to an urgent care center, but people who present at emergency rooms who have behavioral health issues. There used to be a behavioral health emergency room associated with the old Earl K. Long Hospital, and when that hospital closed, that emergency room closed, and it certainly is a genuine need for a facility like that. In the absence of a Medicaid expansion, we would still be dependent, or if it were repealed, we would be rolled back to our dependency on a charity hospital system for the care of those individuals. They would miss out on the opportunity for preventative care, and we would still be struggling on how you finance and pay for that charity hospital system, as we did before we engaged in this expansion.
Our thanks to Don Gregory from PAR for his insight and for his time. What is the difference between $8 and $10? Only $2, right? Well, not when you're looking at thousands of acres of soybeans. LPB's Kelly Spires looked into the drop of soybean prices that's been going on the last several months. That's got to be a big problem.
Andre, that's right. As you mentioned, farmers are expecting about $2 less per bushel than when they planned their crops earlier this year, but that can mean a $100,000 hit to their pocketbooks.
It's been a challenging year so far. Everything went really good starting out of the gate, and then we hit a dry spell about the 1st of May. We went about 6 weeks with no rain at all. Things got really dry.
Carlos Polazola is farming 2,300 acres of soybeans this year. He says his crop is over halfway through growing season.
And our planters were parked for 6 weeks waiting on the rain, but we was able to finish up the planting, and now we're dealing with rain every day, and which we haven't gotten too much rain as of yet, but we're pretty closely getting to the point where it's too much.
Raymond Scheck-Snyder is looking at a similarly sized crop.
Normally we'll get some disease and bugs and everything else. We've been spraying though, we've been keeping on top of it.
Unpredictable weather and the disease and the pests are things that Polazola and Scheck-Snyder know how to deal with and account for. But this year they've faced other hurdles when it comes to clearing a profit on their beans. The market price has dropped out due to a couple of factors. Michael De Liberto is an agriculture economist with the LSU Ag Center. He says an abundance of soybeans on the market has contributed to the price decline, and Chinese tariffs have made a bad situation even worse.
China buys 60% of the U.S. soybeans that are exported on an annual basis. So when you equate that to dollars, it's about $14 billion a year of our soybean crop that's destined for the Asian nation.
Carryouts and ending stocks are numbers used to measure demand. It's what's left after what's been crushed, exported, or used for seed.
As that demand shrinks or erodes and that demand can't be met by other countries stepping up to the plate and buying a portion of those soybeans, the carryout or the ending stocks is going to get larger and larger. As the ending stocks get larger in a market, price is going to become suppressed.
But what do global markets mean for a farmer in Louisiana? Well, at the beginning of a season, many farmers take out loans to front the costs for seed, fertilizer, pesticides, equipment, land leasing.
We're running really tight margins now. There's a lot of debt in the farm community. And, we're just one bad crop away from being in a really bind.
When China's not buying beans, that's bad news.
If the tariffs remain in place and the Midwest actually, as a country, we harvest another big crop this year, then I think at the end of the year, things could get severely ugly with an abundant supply.
If you assume a 50 bushel per acre yield, a producer would need to receive anywhere between $7.30 or $9.30 per bushel of soybeans to cover those total costs of production.
De Liberto says part of the calculus farmers use to mitigate risk is selling their product ahead of time, called booking, kind of like futures trading. Maybe they contracted with a grain elevator in March for the price of soybeans in March and will deliver in the fall after they're done harvesting. Maybe they got in on that higher price of soybean in March, even though they're worth less on the market now. Scheck-Snyder did this, and he says he still stands to lose over $100,000.
We don't really book everything at one time, so we luckily had sold beans before this, and so we kind of space out selling through the year, and hopefully you do a pretty decent job and get an average price, that's maybe a little above midway.
That strategy might make or break a farmer this year.
Have they pre-booked or forward contracted a large portion of their crop already prior to that price drop? The barometer for farm profitability is going to come down to the volume that producer or that farm has left to book.
It's kind of scary now, not knowing what to expect, really. I know Trump does a lot of these deals and talks a lot of stuff, but I'm guessing he's looking out for the country, and I hope he's taking into account all the farmers. What we stand to lose.
Polazola says he's seen the numbers in his farm profitability formula change a lot since he started.
When I began farming in 1987, the first tractor I bought new was $52,000. Today, 31 years later, that same tractor would cost me $250,000 to replace. Back when I started farming, the price was in the $8 range. A bushel of beans would cost $12 an acre to plant. Today it costs $72 an acre to plant the same bean.
The only way to make up the gap in cash, Polazola says, is hope you can put out more supply.
So the only way you can survive, you have to hope that we get the right weather and make an abundance crop to have more bushels to fill the gaps in, because things are very expensive today. We spend a lot of money.
And that's the nature of farming, DiLiberto says.
Those increases in production costs are going to have to be met with either increased yield or increased commodity prices. The producer oftentimes can't control the price they receive from their commodity, but they can control the amount and the intensity of the input that they use at the field level.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a report Thursday saying Mexico, Taiwan, and Egypt are importing more soybeans, making up some of what has been lost in decreased sales to China. In addition, there's still a lot of the season left, and who knows what the weather might do.
Yeah,
Andre?
We'll have to wait and see, Kelly. Thank you for that. And also thank you to our friends at This Week in Louisiana Agriculture and the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. They contributed video and reporting for that story. An iconic Louisiana liquid spice company has been inspiring burning passion for 150 years now. That's the McElhenney Company and its Tabasco sauce that's bottled on Avery Island. LPB has taken a few trips there over the years, and Kelly visited the archives that we have at LPB to find out more. What did you come up with?
Well, Andre, just a few years ago, we visited Avery Island to get a tour of how the sauce gets made. Food lovers across the globe are familiar with Avery Island, Louisiana. Roughly 100,000 tourists visit this place every year because of a burning passion to one particular product. Here in 1868, Edmund McElhenney produced a little bottle of hot pepper sauce that sent culinary shockwaves all over the world.
All right, I'd like to welcome y'all to Avery Island, home of the famous Tabasco sauce. Mr. McElhenney started his sauce after the Civil War just with his friends and his family. We now bottle over 700,000 bottles a day.
The McElhenney Company remains a family-run business. Tony Simmons is great-great-grandson of Edmund McElhenney and company president.
We have a very loyal fan base around the world, and they love, if they can, to come visit what they know to be the home of their favorite hot sauce, and come to Avery Island and actually see it made and experience it.
Originally, all peppers used in Tabasco sauce were grown on Avery Island. Today, peppers grown on the island are used to produce seed stock, which is then shipped to foreign growers primarily in Central and South America. Peppers are ground into a mash on the day of harvest, and then that mash is shipped back to Avery Island, where it is poured into white oak whiskey barrels. Salt mined underground at the island is added on top to create a natural seal while the mash ages for 3 years to become the perfect Tabasco sauce. And after that 3-year sleep, the pepper mash gets a wake-up call from Simmons. It's time for a taste, or rather, a smell.
You know, your nose is much more sensitive than your tongue.
You're right, sure.
So I'll smell each barrel to make sure there are no off odors, there's nothing wrong with it, that it's got a nice fruity smell that it should have. And then I'll also taste some of it. Okay. Now when you taste Tabasco mash, it's about 10 times as hot as the product.
Next, snowy egrets were nearly hunted to extinction. During that time, egrets were hunted for their feathers for ladies' hats.
EA was credited by the Audubon Society with helping save the snowy egret from extinction.
Theodore Roosevelt called the most important or impressive preserve in the country. E.A. McElhenney showed that you can make a difference in conservation just by acting on your own.
On your way out, your last stop could be the Tabasco Country Store for some special sauces and souvenirs. So that's just a short history course on Tabasco pepper sauce and the family who makes it, and the impact they have on the world. That was from an LPB program called Louisiana Travels. Longtime viewers will remember the former anchor of this show, Charlie Wynnum. Charlie went on to a job promoting Louisiana to tourists around the country and internationally with the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, which, as you can see, is quite fitting.
Very fitting, good training for that job in tourism. Kelly, thanks so much for that. We appreciate it. And you can find out more about the unique destinations in our state by checking out LPB's digital archives at ladigitalmedia.org. The PBS Online Film Festival is back for its 7th year from July 16th through the 27th. 25 short-form independent films are featured, including one from a Louisiana filmmaker. I talked with Paul Catalano about his film, Mr. United States. This Honor Online PBS Film Festival, what's that mean for you?
I'm thrilled. The PBS Film Festival, or the PBS Online Film Festival, notoriously hard festival to get into, very selective. So to have a film to finally get in and to participate is a huge honor. And I'm really hoping to make it into the top with the audience participation. I'm hoping that, we can bring something back to Louisiana.
You'll get a lot of clicks on this, right?
I am
a lot
really
of people voting
hoping.
for you.
That's what I'm hoping. Hopeful. I want this to go viral, if not for just me, but for the organization that the video is about and the individual that the video is about. I want people to see the story.
Well, tell us about this story.
Well, the name of the film is called Mr. United States. It's about Avery D. Wilson, who's a Baton Rouge native. It is about him being the first person to win the Mr. United States crown. And what the Mr. United States is an organization much like Miss America, Miss Universe, stuff like that. So it's a pageant. Well, he was the first person to win the crown. And the film uses that as the backdrop because the film mainly focuses on his childhood and how he grew up dealing with basically bullying for his sexuality.
He's a gay man.
Yes, exactly.
And he tells about his life from a child till today.
So I can still hear the chant, Avery is a girl, a sissy and a fag. And next thing you know, it was this whole thing of just not being close to me, because if I touched you, then you had it, like whatever it was.
He talks about being bullied and how he tried to cope with it. And what he did was he tried to be like everybody else. He tried to hide it by, if someone spoke a certain way, then he starts speaking that way. If they wore their clothes a certain way, he wore his clothes that way.
I hated football, I hated baseball, but I made myself love them because I learned how to be good at them. But before I was even saying nothing or talking, boys were already talking about me. So I'm thinking, man, I'm always gonna be a target. But I realized that straight boys like to win. So I tried to figure out how to get good at the sport. It was those moments of winning Little League championships where all of the guys are running to the mound to pick me up. I was that guy. I was the star pitcher. I was the person who won the championship.
He talks about how he's proud of having the title of Mr. United States because he gets to be himself, but he's deciding what it means to be a gentleman, which I think is just, full circle, right? You're talking about a guy who started his life pretending to be something else, but now in 2016 when he was doing his reign, he's himself, and that's what it means to be a man.
His own evolution.
So how about you guys, let's give him some love. Love! Give him some more love. Love! Give him some high love. Love! Give him some low love. Love! How about some rainbow love? Love! Give him some church love. Hallelujah!
This is a documentary.
Exactly, it's a short documentary. What
are your favorite films? You've done many, and some of the different types you've done.
I've done plenty of different types of films, horrors, dramas. I'm real passionate about the horror genre. I have two films that can be found. I did one last year called Sacrilege, which can be found in Redbox, Amazon Prime. It got national and international distribution. I was pretty proud of that. A few years ago, I had a film called Proof of the Devil, which was which could be found in Walmart. Still available on Amazon. And I've also done a bunch of documentaries that have been distributed. I did When the Rivers Rise 2 years ago on the Great Flood that happened in Louisiana. It premiered at the Louisiana International Film Festival. Yes. I did one called Painting a Normal Life that got distribution, which focuses on Hank Holland, who's an artist with cerebral palsy, and he is
so a wide range.
I try. I even do music videos.
And you've won a lot of different types of range of awards also.
Yeah, I have one. I have a hip hop award. I have a Christian country music award, an inspirational nomination. I have a film festival award. I've won best documentaries. I've won a couple of different things, but the stuff that I'm actually most proud of is I'm a volunteer or a board member of TARC, which is a branch of the ARC in Hinchbahoe Parish.
You're a go-getter, a man always on the go. Great to meet you.
That's a filmmaker's life, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Thank you, sir.
And we thank you. Now, how to vote. Beginning this Monday, July 16th, the festival will be available via lpb.org/film festival and on PBS digital platforms, including pbs.org. And as in previous years, films will also be available to stream on YouTube and Facebook. Be sure to get out and vote for that. We have a comeback story now. We are seeing dividends from generations of work to bring back Louisiana's whooping crane. The bird barely escaped extinction back in the 1940s. This year, state scientists are celebrating a milestone: 5 chicks born in the wild. That's the highest number of hatchlings in Louisiana's wilds since scientists started reintroducing the bird there 7 years ago. Biologists estimate more than 10,000 whooping cranes lived in North America before habitat loss and overhunting killed them off. They are native to Louisiana, but scientists at the Audubon Institute say that most people don't even know what they look like anymore. Their numbers have rebounded to 670 today from only about 21 8 decades ago. And that's our show for this week, everyone. Remember, you can watch LPB on demand on your phone or tablet with our LPB Anywhere app. The download is free from your app store. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows and other Louisiana programs that you've come to enjoy over the years. And please be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.